Hello and welcome to the Microbiome Medics podcast. I'm Dr. Siobhan McCormack.
And I'm Dr. Sheena Fraser, and we're your co-hosts.
We are both GPs and lifestyle medics with a shared passion for microbiome science. We'll be translating the evidence and packaging it into actionable, bite-sized chunks so that you can harness the power of the microbiome to improve your own health and that of your patients.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Microbiome Medics podcast. I'm Dr. Sheena Fraser, and today I'm joined by Aslı, who's a nutritionist and dietitian and a research fellow in microbiome science. And she's practicing in Rotterdam currently. We met at a conference, and what interests me about Aslı is that she's really interested in the microbiome of the athlete. So this is an area that's a little bit close to my heart. I have a daughter who's a triathlete, and so I'm always trying to figure out how to enhance her gut microbiome and trying to figure out whether it actually plays a role in the sport that she's doing. So I'm going to hopefully pick Aslı's brains today and find out a little bit more. So Aslı, lovely to see you again, and let me know a little bit more about you. The listeners want to know your background and why you've got an interest in this subject. So give us a little bit of history.
Of course. Thank you so much for your invitation. First, I'm really interested in gut microbiome since during my PhD years because I'm a sports dietitian. I've been practicing with athletes, endurance athletes in particular, for about 10 years now. And most of the time they are asking so many questions about their gut health. Sometimes they don't even know what causing is, and they are doing really tough exercises. So what I try to do is try to tailor their nutritional intake based on their training schedules as well as their off season. I just aim to improve their performance and gut microbiome health. So that's quite interesting, fascinating topic for me. And I'm just trying to help them to improve their performance and well-being at that topic. And I am a research fellow at Dublin City University at that moment. So doing a lot of scientific stuff, plus having all the experiences, like practical experiences, help me to try to identify the problems and try to suggest some solution for my athletes. So happy to be here and answer your questions.
Fantastic. So, Aslı, what research are you doing at Dublin? Give us a wee history of the type of research you've been involved in.
Of course. In Dublin, I try to identify, do you know anything about low energy availability? Of course, you may, know, or athletes quite experiencing, they're not getting enough energy with their nutrition. So they're doing hard training, intense, prolonged training, and they're not supporting around their training schedules with right nutritional intake. So one of these main problems causing a lot of the systematic body problem, like GI problem, neurologic system problem, and we are calling this relative energy deficiency syndrome. So that's why I'm interested in. I'm working with masters endurance athletes, most of them higher than the older than 40 years old. So my aim is to understand whether they are getting enough energy. So we are running some kind of the trials to understand their energy intake and how we can solve if they have experiencing any problems regarding that.
Okay, and are you relating that to the microbiome and how the microbiome responds to different athletic endurance?
So maybe right now, at that moment, we are not looking for anything specific for the gut microbiome, to be honest. But during my PhD, we did this. We just checked my athletes. I was still working with endurance athletes. So we kind of identify gut microbiome associated problems like diarrhea, constipation, bloating, gas, around their exercise training program. So we try to adjust their nutritional intake and apply some type of probiotics to see whether they are really effective for them. And they try to adjust their dietary intake. And after adjusting dietary intake, we see some improvement that was really fascinating for us.
And so is that improvement in the gut microbiome, or is that improvement in their performance, or is it both?
I would say. Both, because we just, yes, because it's not only the improving your gut microbiome health, because it's all connected together. If you ask me, like the years ago, before 19th centuries, I would say, gut microbiome, your gut just for digestive system, and it will help you to absorb nutrients. That will be all. But right now, what we know is it's kind of connect everywhere, like your brain, like your muscles. So that's kind of like crosstalk between the organs, kind of help how to improve your performance. For example, we have a recent study saying that there's a close link between gut and muscles, so that if you improve your gut microbiome health, you kind of boost your energy metabolism, and that will help you to improve your performance as an athlete. So Isn't that perfect?
That's amazing, isn't it? And I was going to say to you, why should athletes care about their gut microbiome? But that's partly answered it. Why else should they care?
So, they're thinking that, like, as an athlete, they're doing perfect stuff about their trainings, and they're scheduling everything before that. But in terms of nutrition, they kind of underestimating its value. So if they're not supporting enough in terms of like fueling, recovery, everything about nutrition, their gut microbiome also affected by that. So, for example, 70% of our the immune system rely on our gut microbiome. And if you don't have healthy gut microbiome, that means you're not really have healthy immune defense to fight for you during these high intensity periods. So it's not only affect your performance, but also affect your immunity and also affect your health, well-being, everything. So they have to be super careful if it's all about gut microbiome health. That means everything for them.
Yeah, I agree with you, Izzy, because it's not just, when we're talking about the gut microbiome, it's not just the health of the gut itself and all those digestive symptoms. You're absolutely spot on. There is this link between the gut and all of the organs in the body, and the health of those organs depends on a healthy gut microbiome. And so you're right. So we're seeing this impact on the immune system, and we're also seeing things like the gut-lung axis. How important are lungs to athletes? They're so important. So if you have a healthy gut microbiome, it helps to keep the levels of inflammation in your lungs low, which improves your lung function. And indeed, looking at other organs in the human body, we want good liver function, we want good kidney function. All of these things are in an athlete, especially when you're competing at a high level, everything should be working as optimally as possible. And the gut microbiome is a way of optimizing all of that. So it is really, really interesting. So what about exercise itself? Because a lot of athletes will say, well, actually exercising is really good for your gut microbiome. So do you know what exercise does to the gut microbiome and how it benefits it?
Yes, actually, really exercise itself, other than regardless of nutrient intake itself, has huge beneficial impact on gut microbiome, because it's kind of help you to regulate, rebuild, and kind of support beneficial gut bacteria in your gut. And also it kind of improve itself, it helps to improve your immune system, immune function, by regulating what we call is gut associated lymphoid tissue. So it's kind of affect every single tissue in the gut microbiome to boost it, because we exercise. Let's say we are just kind of categorize this as a kind of hormetic stressor for your gut. That means it's kind of create a manageable level of stress for your gut, and over time by the time you're doing all the exercise, your body kind of adjusts everything, and that makes your gut straighten and also improve by the time, and it's kind of helpful for your gut health. So exercise itself is a really huge beneficial effect. But what is interesting, exercise really great, but it depends on also your body type, body composition, the exercise severity, or in your intensity and duration. For example, let's say you're a lean individual, so your body tends to react better when you apply exercise compared to obese or overweight adults. Or, for example, let's say you are doing longer duration exercise. That's also kind of shifts your gut microbiome to beneficial. We kind of realize the shift better, quite better compared to shorter distance, like the shorter duration exercise. So it depends a lot of factors, but that exercise itself kind of helpful for your health.
So what would you say is the most beneficial type of exercise then for your gut microbiome?
Kind of say moderate level, kind of manageable level of the stress, not the extreme kind of stuff. So moderate level is quite all right. Like the longer duration, like the lower to moderate intensity would be the best for your gut health, because it's kind of not force your gut microbiome. It's just kind of force a tiny bit that you can just adjust everything, but we kind of love this stress. They apply this stress to our guts. That's kind of how our body kind of adapts everything. But if it's too much, your body kind of struggle how to manage everything after all. So that will be my answer.
So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because obviously for the sort of average person who's just keeping themselves fit, doing a bit of exercise every day, that's really good news. But, when it comes to our athletes, they're definitely pushing themselves that bit more. So does that then mean that they're more at risk of damage to their gut microbiome?
Well, I hope I wish I can answer this saying no, but yes, because the answer is yes, because you are like not creating moderate, manageable level of stress. You are just, if you are, for example, you are doing an endurance runner, you are preparing for a race, so that's probably you're pushing your limits quite a bit, and it's far beyond to moderate level. You're doing intense, longer duration exercise. That's kind of create not like the wanted thing for your gut microbiome. What I mean is it's kind of pushing your gut microbiome's limit as well. And also your body kind of don't know how to endure all the stress, all the level of stress. So hear me out. This is the most important part, I guess, probably. If you're applying intense, high duration, like extreme exercise, plus if you're not getting enough nutrition and you're not getting the right composition in terms of nutrition, for example, getting low fiber diet, not getting any fermented food, and you're getting saturated food, you're going for Western style diet, that kind of worsen the symptoms. And it's kind of we are calling this like leaky gut, which we are experiencing in athletes quite often, especially if they are doing any endurance-based sports. So what we aim to do is try to strengthen their nutritional intake, try to develop some strategy to fight all the stress so that it can be manageable for our gut health. That's the most important part, because most of the time people just say, oh no, I'm taking all the nutrition just to support my performance. Now you just want to be healthy. If you want to be healthy and you want to stay healthy, and longevity, that's the most important part of all the scientific subject at that moment. You have to make sure that you are taking care of your gut health well.
So that's the thing about athletes. So there's a lot about the athlete that kind of increases stress on the microbiome, isn't there? So for example, a typical athlete will have quite a significant training regime. So a lot of hours of training, which is pretty rigorous on the body. And during that training regime, they'll probably be consuming quite high sugars to keep them going, sort of, a lot of glucose products and sugary products. And glucose and sugar is quite pro-inflammatory for the gut. And increases the amount of sort of more pathogenic strains of bacteria, whilst discouraging the sort of beneficial strains of bacteria. So I think it can disrupt the gut microbiome in that way. But also, with you talking about the stress that athletes are under, a lot of endurance sports, or even just a lot of sports where you're pushing your body, you get big surges in cortisols and the stress hormones, don't you? And that can then create a more inflammatory picture in your gut as well, because you get more of the pro-inflammatory bacteria and fewer of the other ones. And again, you get that stimulation of the sugar metabolism, and the sort of puts you into sort of some degree of metabolic dysfunction. Now, our athletes can cope with that because our athletes have incredible mitochondrial function, and they're able to metabolize sugar very, very efficiently. And so that's why they don't get fat, and they don't, end up with diabetes until they stop training. and then if they don't reduce their carbs, if they don't reduce their carbs at that stage, then they quite often do develop diabetes, actually. But all of this then puts a lot of stress, and then in addition, competing is a very, very stressful thing. So that can, just the feelings of stress and all that emotional dysregulation around competitions, and even the night before is damaging for your gut microbiome. And then depending on your sport, you may also be disrupting things like your sleep. So if you're a swimmer, for example, and you're training early morning, and you're not getting to bed early enough, then you could be suffering from sleep deprivation. And again, that's another thing that can stimulate more stress hormones, increase more of the harmful bacteria in your gut, and damage the really beneficial microbes in there, as well as having an impact on your healing and your ability to recover. So there's quite a lot of hits on our athletes.
Yes, exactly.
And so I'm really interested in this, because I think, how do we get this right? How do we make sure that our athletes are supported so that they can still do all of this training and they can still compete, but we try to protect them as much as we can from the harmful impacts of damaging their gut microbiome?
Yes, you mentioned everything, almost everything about all the problematic issue which they are experiencing quite often, and they are all the time asking us how to solve this problem, because that's sometimes it's not even related to nutrition, like you said, sleep. I have a lot of study on sleep, and with endurance athletes, what we realize that right now, what science says, we have really great recent papers saying that you have to take enough sleep, at least 7 to 9 hours per night, to support healthy gut microbiome. But when we look at our athletes, they're not getting enough. They're not even sleeping 7 hours. So that's one of the main problems, because they have to do, if, for example, you said your girl is a triathlete, so you're super familiar with, they have to train maybe 2 or 3 times a day. So she has to wake up earlier than expected. So that's kind of quite challenging. So as a dietitian point of view, what we try to do is to try to adjust their nutritional intakes, based on their training schedules. So we are just adjusting everything step by step. What I'm aiming to do is just looking at the big picture. So try to identify the main points in terms of micronutrient intakes, in terms of carbohydrates, proteins, and fat intakes. I'm working mostly with endurance athletes. So my main point is, if they are getting let's say if they are getting enough energy, first thing first, I'm just setting all the energy intake, like calculating everything. Then I'm just focusing on carbohydrate intake. So as you say, we have to increase the carbohydrate quality to support gut microbiome health. So how we can achieve this? So we have to add something like high fiber foods, like whole grain, sourdough bread, like a lot of we have just they tend to eat, for example, if they are not applying an adjusted nutrition protocol, they tend to eat everything they find, like pasta. They are just going for pasta, or just spreading like the saturated fat, I would call it, just spreading fat on a bread, and they are consuming just like that, and it's not enough for them. So we encourage them to adjust the carbohydrate intake and try to encourage them getting at least 25 gram fiber per day to support their gut microbiome, because all the beneficial bacteria just waiting for them to consume some fiber to support them, because that's their food. They're just waiting for it. So before if we are not getting enough fiber, that's the main, like the harmful thing for our gut microbiome. And second part is, if you are getting proteins, if you are thinking of proteins, like, we have really good plant-based protein sources, which also include high fibers. So I tend to add like at least 2 or 3 portions per week, like the plant-based protein, including like the lentils, like chickpeas, to support their gut microbiome and protein intake as well. So that's maybe like may sound like the smallest changes, but it's really helpful for their gut microbiome. So another thing in terms of like fat intake, so I tend to limit their saturated fat intake during all the nutrition, like the periodization, and try to encourage them consuming mono or poly unsaturated fats like olive oil, like nuts, seeds. That will help them to consume like the healthy fats during their training period, and also that will be also helpful for their gut microbiome. And that's the main macronutrient part. Other than that, they have to be super careful about hydration, because hydration is one of the most important part about gut health and performance. They're all the time. Right now, we are like experiencing a lot of global health issues, and the temperatures has been increasing over time. And during, for example, as a couple of years ago, I have many athletes attending Berlin Marathon, and Berlin, all the time it was super chilly outside, and they were feeling super comfortable while they're running. But right now, this year and last year, they're all the time complaining about the temperature. It was quite high. Even in Berlin, it's Germany. So the temperature, the environment condition, everything just kind of boosts your body, and trigger your body, and you are losing fluid from your body through sweat. So what you have to do is, if you are doing you are racing in a the high temperature, under a high temperature, you have to adjust your hydration strategy beforehand, so that you may just provide enough fluid for your body, so that will help your body to prevent every leaky gut related issues. It will just support your gut barrier, so that will be really helpful to for your performance. So this will be another part in terms of nutrition point of view.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to the fiber, because what you might have a counter argument from your athletes that when they're performing, if they eat too much fiber, then it means that obviously the side effect from eating fiber is that you move your bowels more frequently. And that can be an issue for people doing longer competitions. There was a recent triathlete, I think, that had to move their bowels in the middle of a competition. It's really difficult for athletes. in these kind of competitions. So is there a tip for that? Because I had this argument with my husband recently, because he does ultra marathons. And he was saying, oh, I really need to go sort of low fiber on the run up to this so that I don't need to move my bowels in the middle of the race. And I was like, but that actually means that you're putting your gut into an unhealthy position before going through quite a stressful race. And to me, that's counteractive, because that's going to damage your gut microbiome all the more. And so although it's inconvenient, it's probably better to move your bowels in the middle of the race and take that hit rather than kind of just trying to get yourself into that constipated state. What do you think on that? And what would your advice be?
That's really big question. Like, it has been a big question for many, many years. So we just discussed this with this professor and every single one, because we really can't decide which one is the worst in terms of like not applying any carbohydrate, because you cannot apply high fiber containing carb sources during training. So it will really, you will end up going toilet instead of going to the finish line. So I kind of saw this like quite often. So they kind of, it's kind of challenging for their bodies. So what we aim to do is, well, if they are doing any ultra marathon or the really marathon, no, even marathon, it's like 4 hours. So we have to support their energy intake, because we don't want him that hitting the wall. Did you know, hitting the wall when they experiencing this? That's the worst part of the race. So we never want our athletes experience something like that, like feeling underfueled. That will be the worst part. And instead of thinking of gut microbiome health, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my point is, keep them healthier. So because right now we are running a project about this topic. We are just checking their nutritional intake 1 week before, during race, and 1 week after the race. So we try to check their gut microbiome composition to understand whether it's just something that we can just fight for it, or how their gut microbiome changed during and after the training. So maybe it's just for a couple of days, and then everything is gonna be like we can just adjust everything again. So that will be our question. So as a dietitian point of view, I'm quite fond of carbohydrate gels, because that's how we can just boost their performance while they're not experiencing any detrimental impact of this high exercise loads. Because we have some studies saying that if you're not getting enough carbohydrate during the race, they have like experiencing higher like the stressors and mental issues regarding that. So that's also kind of really harmful for our athletes. And also in terms of carbohydrate intake, yes, we are applying carb loading strategies beforehand, but it's not really enough if they are racing like 4 hours, maybe 6 or 7 hours really. So we have to give them carbohydrates. So whether they are taking gels or fluids or chews or gums, it doesn't really necessarily matter, because we have studies saying that it doesn't matter. What matters is how you're comfortable with this. Which one? You have to choose one of them. And in terms of gut health, what I say, look in the big picture. So yes, during the race, I encourage them to consume this type of carbohydrate, like easily digestible gels. But other than that, outside the race, I highly encourage the intake of these like high fiber intake. But if they're applying this carbohydrate strategy, that's another topic to talk about, because we have to decide which athletes we are talking about, how what is their gut microbiome response, because it's also changed within athletes. Everyone has the unique gut microbiome. So I try to adjust. I try to train their gut microbiome. So I'm pushing their gut microbiome's limits to adjust healthier way. So if we couldn't do that, we just go with the easiest one with the low carbohydrate during or around the training. Then we just change our nutrition to healthier. Do you know?
Mm-hmm. And in terms of actually measuring sort of what is healthy for your gut microbiome, because obviously we don't really have nice available testing of the gut microbiome yet that's, available for you with your clients and for me in my practice. So how would you say that athletes should gauge the health of their gut microbiome? What are the sort of things to look for in terms of your performance and your gut? What would you say is a sign of a healthy gut, and what's a sign of an unhealthy gut?
Yes, that's a great question. So, well, there as a sports dietitian, I kind of hear a lot of exercise-associated gastrointestinal problems from my athletes. So they are experiencing, for example, runner's diarrhea. So it may be one of the reasons why they are experiencing this runner's diarrhea because of their nutritional intake. So we have to check their nutritional intake beforehand to see. So what type of GI problems they are experiencing, that's kind of show us. And also in terms of like the immunity. So sometimes you see a lot of athletes getting sick quite often, although you are just adjusting everything. That's another like the red flag that they are not supporting their gut health. So we are just checking again if they are consuming enough to support their gut microbiome system. So we are tended sometimes, for example, they aim something to reach in terms of like the performance. So and they couldn't achieve it, although they're applying all the trainings. So that's another thing, another sign for us. Maybe they're not having the healthy gut. Or another thing, for example, they are having some really serious mental issues. Although they are taking psychologists and everything, I just tend to check their nutritional intake. That might be another cause. So I'm just checking all the red flags and just going accordingly in terms of like regulating their nutritional intake, because there's not, as you say, nothing that we can just apply. A couple of years ago, one brand just tell people, yes, apply this and we will check your gut microbiome, and we will say, it's not a thing that we can do this right now. What we can do is just checking red flags, then adjust their diet accordingly.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's the important thing for people to realize, that, a sign of poor gut health might be a whole manner of different symptoms that you're experiencing. It's not necessarily just a bit of diarrhea or a bit of constipation or some heartburn or, gastritis. It could be that you're, the sign that your gut isn't healthy is mood problems or, immune problems, like you say, catching lots of infections all the time, and just feeling run down. And I think, that's why you've got to have quite a holistic approach here, don't you, to looking at the gut microbiome. And
we have to.
Yeah, and it is interesting. The whole sleep thing, I think, is really, really important. And I think obviously there are certain sports where it's much harder to maintain good sleep, but people are catching on to this. I remember going to a lecture from a sleep expert, and he was saying that he was consulted by Manchester United football team, and he works for a lot of Formula One racing drivers and people like that, because they all realize that actually sleep is highly important to their performance, and if they get their sleep right, then that enhances their performance, and indeed it enhances your gut microbiome. So it's, there's so many benefits to it. And I think, that's another really important aspect. Although today we're discussing more about nutrition, I think, sleep is actually something that athletes really need to take very, very seriously. And my understanding is that if you're an athlete, you probably need slightly more sleep than the average person because of your healing. But Do you think that's right? I mean, obviously they're building more muscle, they're repairing more, there's a lot going on and they're dealing with a lot of stress. What do you think?
I wouldn't say more, but at least 7 hours per day is like the most recommended hours for athletes. And if you're not good at like the adjusting your sleeping schedules, we kind of have several strategies to improve your sleep. So, for example, yes, it's not our today's topic, but it's super important for athletes. I believe so too. But what we aim is to encourage them to taking daily naps, like even 15 to 30 minutes per day would be enough for them to like to improve their sleep quality in terms of like the whole quality. So sometimes, like most of the times, they are doing great actually life work, so they don't have to take naps during the day. So what we encourage them to increase their sleeping time. We are calling this banking sleep, just 1 week or 10 days before the main event. So what we trying to do is they're going taper phase during that time. So they kind of decrease their training load. So during that time, we encourage them, if let's say you are sleeping 7 hours, we say try to increase to 9 hours per day. It might be quite challenging, but still stay in the bed. So maybe your body kind of adjusts and you might slightly increase your sleeping time. So this banking sleep behavior kind of help you improve your sleep duration just before the races. That might be one strategy, but looking for the whole sleep part, we are running some studies on which type of foods would be beneficial to improve their nutrition intake, or which type of like the proteins or amino acids to improve, like to add their diet to improve their sleep. So that will be another topic for us. It's quite challenging, but hopefully we will get there and support their sleep quality, improve their sleep quality as well as their nutrition.
Yeah. And actually, the Biobank study in the UK has actually produced some really good data on this, because they've been able. Biobank has a huge cohort of hundreds of thousands of people in it, and they were able to look at trends in diet and sleep patterns and mood and various things. And actually they were able to see from their studies that people with higher fiber diets actually have better quality sleep and longer sleep. So again, it comes
All
back to this. You have to treat people holistically. If you kind of miss one piece of the puzzle, then a lot of things can fall apart. So if you've got that low fiber diet, then not only is it damaging your gut microbiome, but it's also potentially not allowing you to achieve really good quality sleep, which again is then going to damage your gut microbiome. So, it sort of all goes round in circles, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, it's really interesting. You mentioned carb gels and things like this. I wanted to just ask you a little bit more about that, because obviously there's a big variety out there. And there are some that are, more natural, and others that are sort of just glucose. And I have to say a little bit confused myself, because the body needs glucose, doesn't it? When it's needing a hit of energy, it can utilize glucose much more readily. And I'm wondering about these fructose ones and whether or not that's sensible, because that, to metabolize fructose, you have to go via the liver, and it's not as immediate to come to you as energy. So, but I obviously like the idea of more natural products, but I'm a bit torn as to whether it's appropriate for athletes. What do you think?
So, well, that's another great question. So, in terms of carbohydrate gels, in the carbohydrate type of which type of, so yes, your body needs quick release carbohydrates to support energy system, because your body doesn't want anything that kind of slow the process, so that they can take all the energy requirement at the moment when you probably provided them. So that's science says, yes, glucose is a great solution. It's quickly released and your body kind of use it. But another point is when the duration of the exercise kind of get longer than like 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours, and the intensity quite higher. So your body needs more than 60 gram carbohydrate per hour. So the science says you have to increase your carbohydrate intake more than that. So, in our gut, we have, I can kind of describe this. We have kind of two doors, one door for the glucose transport, one door for the fructose part. So if we are, let's say, just consuming glucose, our body tend to just kind of have the capacity at the maximum of 60 gram per hour in terms of glucose, like the absorption. So if we are aiming to get 90 gram or like a higher carbohydrate intake, more than 60 gram, you have to put another carbohydrate sources so that you can open two doors, one for glucose, one for fructose, so that your body kind of use all the carbohydrate source. That's why all the common, like the recent guidelines encouraging people putting glucose plus fructose, like two, like the range would be 2 for glucose, 1 for fructose. That will be the perfect combination for a gels to support your performance. That's the way how you can just improve. We have a couple of studies applying either glucose or glucose plus fructose, and they clearly show us if you have multi-transportable carbohydrate during the race, you kind of improve your performance because you improve the energy system, you provide more sources to produce energy, so that will help you achieve your goal. So that's main reason why we are just doing this like a multi-transportable carbohydrates and supporting this. But in terms of gut microbiome, that would be tricky for some athletes because they might experiencing some really serious issue when they consume some gels with fructose intake. So you have to make sure that your athletes feeling okay when they apply this type of gels.
Okay, all right. So does the fructose make them have more gut issues then?
Sometimes, some of them, because fructose, we call it short chain carbs. So it's kind of tend to like the less digestible compared to other carbohydrate source. So that's kind of causing all the bloating, gas symptoms in guts. So that might be another factor why our athletes having all the exercise associated like GI problems. So we have to check twice whether if they are experiencing any issues. So my point is I kind of try everything beforehand, not during the races. We just kind of train and try everything just beforehand, like during the training sessions, whether they are feeling okay. If they have any issues, we are just passing using this type of thing.
Okay, all right, good. So you mentioned our athletes sort of hitting a wall, and our especially with female athletes as well. It's a bit of a thing, especially our teenage female athletes. Underfueling is quite common in that group. What would your advice be to people like my daughter, who's in that age category, and in terms of how to get the right kind of fuel for training and for competitions, so that you don't underfuel. But obviously, young girls are concerned about body image and they don't want to put weight on, and there are all these confounding issues, aren't there? So how do you advise in that situation?
That's one of the toughest part of our job because when I work with adolescents, young athletes, all the time they are super concerned, they're like addicted to their body image instead of their performance or well-being. They're all the time asking for me to provide something that not putting on weight. They don't want to gain any weight, but they just want to perform well. What my point, what I am doing, practicing right now, I kind of try to educate them in terms of nutrition education and also body image related education. During my master thesis, I kind of work on body image problems. So I know how they feel, and I kind of feel why they don't want to consume everything. So I kind of collect all nutritional diet and details about my athletes and all the training loads, everything. And I put everything, like put it down and show them the graphic. If you're not, whether they are getting enough energy or not. So try to show them, try to make them understand whether they are not underfeeling and how this might be impact their performance and also well-being. For example, like the hormonal issues, like they are most of the time experiencing like the amenorrhea. So that's it, with like the menstrual problems, like quite common in the adolescent athletes. I try to ask them questions related to this if they have any problems with that. So sometimes I get some help from sports psychologists, to be honest, because that's something that we have to discuss again, holistically to find the best solution. And also highly try to educate their parents, because the parents also needs to know what to say what's the key factor for their adolescence. So it depends on the adolescents. Do you know what I mean? But the main part is to educate them before starting all the training, all the nutrition intake. So why we are doing this, why this is so important, and it's not going to change your body composition. You're not going to gain weight. That's just supports your body. And I kind of want them to let me apply my nutritional solution like at least 3 weeks and see the changes. And when they trust in me, we can kind of change everything. Other than that, so it's kind of tough before asking any sports dietitian to adjust their diet, just as a parent, to be honest. Because, well, you have to just calculate everything, whether they are getting enough. If they are getting enough, no problem after all. But if they are not, they have to see the nutritionist or dietitian to adjust their dietary intake and give them some nutritional education.
So what would be the warning signs that you're underfueling? What are the main pickups for parents out there or for athletes out there or just, keen sports people who actually just might be doing a lot of training? What's a good sign that you're not quite getting enough energy into your body?
Yes. Well, most of the time, if female is really checking the behavior in terms of eating behavior of their, like the kids, they kind of realize they are not eating enough. They're not eating enough. They are just try to not consuming all the things. It's kind of like the absorption during the meal time. But if you are not having meal at the same time with their kids, that's another challenging factor. But they kind of realize whether they are just feeling tired all the time. They just want to skip something, not their training. They're just addicted to their training. But other than that, they just don't want to attend any family issues, anything. After all, they kind of feel spend some time alone, or sometimes they feel super exhausted, even they're doing nothing. So it's kind of checking the iron deficiency symptoms, So that's kind of give us a little bit signs that yes, they are feeling not okay, and sometimes they're not kind of or some of my athletes, their parents, to be honest, telling me they have some problems with schools. They're not performing enough. They're not getting high scores as well as comparing the older version of their kids. But what changed after all the sports? So I'm just checking their school performance. If they are doing anything, like sometimes they kind of couldn't concentrate on if they are playing some musical instruments. I'm just try to get all the details. They check every details, whether they are performing well, not only performance, but other aspects of life. If they are continue doing everything like in a perfect state, they might be cool. And also check whether they are getting sick again. If it's super common, like if they're underfueling, they might be getting sick compared to other ones that like the quite often like the health issues, they might experience something like that. So let's say what else that can be. So I'm just I try to see that like that look at the every single symptoms that might be that maybe you kind of experience it, like they just try to size down a bit. They're wearing like let's say 6 instead of 8, like they size. So you might need to change whether they have the enough body fat percentage to support all the system. So as a parent, you have to check every single detail to understand. It's super tough, but you can get if any red flags around.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's not an unusual scenario for a lot of athletes either, is it? That, they're just that sort of general fatigue and, not healing as well, not concentrating well enough at school. So everything's sort of declining. And as you say, that you can get that endocrine disruption as well, which upsets their periods. And So yeah, it's really worth sort of being aware of all of these type of symptoms and seeing how they impact, because without addressing that, you're sort of in this constant state of underfueling, aren't you? And you're just going to it's going to end up in burnout really if you keep going like that. So it's a really important thing, and actually it's something that I think I'm quite glad to see that my local sports clubs that my children attend are actually quite aware of this, and they do actually notice if their young athletes are displaying these type of symptoms. So I'm quite encouraged that it's more of a sort of known thing around training nowadays. So it's really, really good that more people are talking about it. But what they're not talking about is the gut microbiome.
Yeah.
And I have to say, my daughter's in triathlon Scotland, and she attends events and things, and it's not something that they've ever addressed. In fact, I would say it's the opposite. Sometimes, unfortunately, when she goes away for events, they'll take the athletes the night before to these fast food restaurants.
Yes, yeah,
and give them fast food the night before a race.
But most of the time, they don't have any dietitian working for them. So that's one of the main problem.
It is a problem. It is a problem because, of course, so many of these sports clubs are run by people that are dedicating so much time for so little money or nothing. Often they're charitable, and there isn't really a great deal of funding or support that way for a lot of sports clubs these days. But they may not be realizing that they might be thinking they're doing the kids a favor. They're away from their families. Give them some food that they're really going to enjoy. But in actual fact, it does really affect performance. And my daughter says she doesn't want anything junk foody before a race because it really does make her feel sluggish the next day. I think many sports clubs will get the odd talk from a nutritionalist or whatever, just to try and get some important information about nutrition. But they still tend to discuss protein, carbs, fats, these type of things. There's not really a narrative around the gut microbiome yet that I have witnessed. And I'm just wondering, how do we get this knowledge out to sports clubs to really make them think, actually, fiber is really important? That's another element, variety in the type of plants that you're getting, maybe some fermented foods. How do we get that kind of information out to sports clubs and things?
That's the super tough to get because the dietitians kind of prepare every slide, every presentation based on their what they wanna hear, so that they want to hear how they can boost their performance. They want to hear how they can just like the easy to recover for the athletes. They're asking this type of questions, nothing related to gut microbiome. The point is we have to make dietitian, like the increased dietitians awareness about the gut microbiome at first. That would be the first thing to do, because other than that, I've known so many dietitians, they're not really talking about gut microbiome, but talking about everything. So we have to educate the health professional at first. So then we can just kind of reach other people, because I've been working with a lot of coaches. So that's one of the main topic I share with them, and I try to encourage them to just not concentrate on performance, because performance is closely linked to gut microbiome. So after hearing me out, they try to change something. And what I realized, oh my God, when I attend the events and everything, I kind of see a little bit change about the healthy style foods. I can say, yes, that was my point. And they're kind of getting everything. So we have to make them realize the importance of the gut microbiome at first. That's how they can maybe change this habit to going for a fast food restaurant instead of maybe a healthier option, even provide the kids. So that might be the solution. I don't know anything else what we can do exactly to change this.
Yeah, I think we've got a bit of a long road in front of us, sadly. But
yes, I believe
yeah, it's really frustrating. But hopefully, we can get more of this messaging out there. And, maybe people can pass this podcast on to their local clubs so that they can learn a little bit more from you, Aslı, because I think it's so important for them to hear a nutritionist that is actually using this science and understanding the science and being able to, really enhance the performance of athletes with this approach. So I think that's really, really good. So have you got any other tips for how athletes can optimize their gut microbiome while training and while competing?
We talk most of the time everything related to gut microbiome and nutritional intake. And during training, I kind of just ask them, listen to your gut every time and check all the signs, all the signals related to that. Because as a dietitian, my point is all the time just try to try to see their gut's limits in terms of use, as you say before. Like if we are giving high fibers, foods, they might experiencing some GI issues like bloating, gas symptoms as well. But after a while, what I tend to suggest them, try to increase this type of the high fiber intake, it starts step by step to adjust everything, to train their gut. And also they might apply fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, one of my favorites, one of my athletes' favorites. Either they are using milk or water, doesn't matter really. It really helps my athletes to improve their gut microbiome. How I realize, because I realize that they're not getting sick, they are performing well, they are reaching their performance target. That's how they kind of achieve it. So they are just changing, they're applying their nutritional, the dietary plan, plus adding some fermented foods. We are changing their, the normal bread to sourdough bread. That's the small step, but it works quite well. We are adding yogurt to most of their meals, and kefir and everything, kimchi sometimes. And yeah, we have a couple of sources, even some of them, a couple of papers recently, they're talking about chocolates and their impact on gut microbiome. And it says the high carb, 85% carbohydrate, if I'm not wrong. If you apply this type of chocolates per day, it's kind of helpful for your gut microbiome, because it's also a fermented food. You are using chocolate beans and using some starter culture to produce this chocolate. So it's also helpful because, and also another fact, polyphenol intake is you have to add some different type of antioxidants to an athlete diet, because most of the time, for example, like after training, we are just concentrating on protein to just boost their muscle protein synthesis, plus carbohydrate to replenish their glycogen stores, but nothing at all. We have to check their polyphenol intakes to like if we increase their antioxidant intake, that will also helpful to restore and regulate their gut microbiome and regulate their immunity as well. So that will be also quite helpful to be to recover easily after these like the extreme exercise or events.
Just tell the listeners a little bit more about polyphenols and antioxidants, and where do they get these from, and what are the best sources?
So, well, these are the type of products, like the compounds. We can find it like the fruits and vegetables. It's kind of like a non-digestible small part, but it's kind of helpful to restore and rebuild and also boost your immune metabolism by like kind of helping restoring all the immune cells in your gut and your body. So we kind of help them. For example, let's say if you are getting 300-gram berries, any type of berries really, have a high polyphenol intake. So that's kind of how you can just improve your polyphenol intake. So fruits and vegetables, nuts, is really great sources for the polyphenol intakes. So we can just kind of encourage them, and also try to make their diet diverse in terms of polyphenol intakes. So go for different color in terms of fruits and vegetables. So every color meaning that they have different type of polyphenol inside. So we try to encourage them to pick different color and make it colorful like the rainbow, so that you can just see. You can just get all the benefits from the polyphenol to just support your immunity and gut microbiome and performance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, polyphenols are so important for us. And as you say, they've got this incredible antioxidant, impressive effect on our immune system. They also can really help our blood vessels and to maintain the sort of health of our blood vessels, which again is really important as an athlete. You want to have really effective, lovely, clean blood vessels pumping lots of blood through. So, if you've got quite a diet that's very high in sugars, and if you're metabolically slightly deranged there, then you're more likely to get more damage to the arteries, and that can then cause you problems as an athlete in terms of your arterial function, and you don't want to end up with high blood pressures and things like this, and cardiovascular risk. So polyphenols are very, very important. So yeah, that's a great message to get out to our athletes, to just really ramp up the variety and the types of plants that are in their diet, so that they eat the rainbow and get all of that variety in. You've mentioned fermented foods. What do you think about probiotic supplements? Because a lot of people will be taking them and thinking that they're doing a good thing by taking them, and what's your advice as a nutritionist with those?
Probiotics can be really helpful for like the support gut microbiome to improve your like metabolism if you are experiencing some disorder or medical symptoms, but not all probiotics could be helpful, and not everyone should take one of the probiotics to support their system, because, well, yes, we have a lot of studies saying that applying probiotics can help you restore or just rebuild or help your gut microbiome and any symptoms regarding that. But we have to know which type of problem our athletes experiencing. For example, if they have diarrhea, we have to ask whether they apply any antibiotics recently, because if they apply antibiotics, the diarrhea might be related to this antibiotic usage, and the probiotic species specific to antibiotic associated diarrhea is quite different compared to other probiotic sush. So what I'm trying to say is you have to make sure that it's really like the targeted. So you have to make sure that you know the main problem so you can pick the right probiotic sush, like the species, then you can apply to your athletes. So what my point is, I have a couple of athletes just using some type of probiotics, saying that, oh, my friends just offered this, it worked for him, so I just start working using this. But it's not the thing. One can get all the positive benefit, like positivity of the probiotics, but it doesn't necessarily means that you will get all the same stuff, the same benefits from that. So you have to make sure that you check with your GP, dietitian, or nutritionist as just for help, as for advice, and if they prescribe you to use probiotics, so then go for it. Other than that, I'm not really encouraging people to use probiotics. Just yes, because we have a lot of campaigns saying that, oh, that will really boost your immunity, that will help you X, Y, Z. Yes, I'm applying probiotics to my athletes, some of them, but I try to make sure whether they are experiencing anything like irritable bowel syndromes or anything related to diarrhea or constipation. I generally go with prebiotic instead of probiotics. So you have to make sure what type of symptoms, problems they're experiencing it. And it's not just something that you can apply for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, there's mounting research now into probiotics. So we're probably going to get to the stage quite soon where there's a lot more evidence base. And if people are interested in looking at the evidence base for probiotics, they can look at the ISAP website, which is a really good resource. And that tells you about all the sort of current research into probiotics and symbiotics and postbiotics even. So really useful source of information. And there may well be some very good studies looking at probiotics in certain conditions that you might be really interested in. But otherwise, a lot of the probiotics that we're manufacturing are lactobacilli, bifidobacteria, these kind of bacteria that we commonly find in fermented foods. And that's not to say that fermented foods suit everybody's gut, because of course, some people's gut may reject those fermented foods, or it might be quite difficult for you to cope with them. But on the whole, fermented foods provide a nice variety of beneficial bacteria. I shouldn't call them probiotics because you can't in fermented foods unless they've got that evidence base. But they contain a lot of these very beneficial bacteria, and you may be able to find some solutions in the fermented food world that really suit your gut, which is probably going to be quite a lot cheaper than going for a probiotic supplement. And you can often find you get a greater diversity of species in these fermented foods as well. So personally, I'm more of a fan of fermented foods.
Same here.
But they can be really useful for people that don't like fermented foods, or just can't get on with them for various reasons. So I'm kind of with you on that, Aslı. And I think it just comes down to the individual again. What suits them. So I think we've talked about quite a lot of stuff here, and I'm just about getting my head around the athlete's microbiome. But what about me? I'm not an athlete, right? But I like to exercise and keep super fit. And I go to the gym, and I go to the gym with a lot of other people. I did a gym workout this morning, a wee HIIT class, 45 minutes. And it makes me feel great. But I look around the room and I see quite a variety of different fueling in the room. And I'm wondering, how much fuel do I need for doing, say, an hour's workout a day or a 45-minute workout in a day? Should I be fueling up before it? Do I need to? Should I be fueling during or after? What's your advice to sort of just general sporty people like myself?
Yes, yes, yeah, that will be a great addition to our podcast because yes, not everyone athletes and they are doing like a recreational exercise, but don't know what to do. In terms of nutritional intake, I kind of suggest to you to just adjust again everything what I recommend for athletes. But if we are talking about before, during, and after nutritional intake, that will change because you are not doing like an exercise can last like 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. So you kind of, it's not necessarily to fool your body to improve everything based on that. So my point is, if you are, for example, let's say you are doing early morning training, it's not, and it will be super easy to moderate. It will be 45 minutes and you just want to do it just fastest state. That will be quite fine for your body. If you are okay with that, you are not experiencing any issues regarding your blood levels, like the blood sugar levels. Sometimes it is okay to go with that. But if you tend to go like the moderate to high intensity and you are aiming to do 45 to 1 hour, it will be slightly like the not manageable, but still it's kind of challenging for your body. So what I suggest you to consume a light snack like 1 gram per kilogram carbohydrate in it. So that will be a toast or just like the quick a banana, something, maybe a peanut butter on the top. That will be quite enough for you to just like pre-fueling stage. And during the training, if it's 45 minutes, it's not necessarily consume anything. You can just drink some water. That will be helpful for your body. But instead of that, it's not necessary to consume anything. But sometimes people saying, oh, I'm just doing running recreationally, but they are doing like 1.5 hour. They're doing 2 hours exercise. If that's something you are doing, and if you are going slow, like low to moderate intensity, maybe consuming around 30 gram carbohydrate per hour would be beneficial for your body and performance. So it depends on, again, the intensity of your exercise, the duration of your exercise, and what your body needs. Listen your body. I kind of mind what your body says. So you can kind of adjust everything. And in terms of post-fueling, that will be something you definitely apply whether you are doing regular exercise or you're an athlete. You have to make sure that you are getting at least 20 gram protein to boost your muscle protein synthesis. 20 gram at least you have to take it. Sometimes, like body size kind of matters. So maybe you might just calculate that 0.25 gram per kilogram, like after your workout. And plus, you may add some carbohydrates, 1 or 1.2 gram per kilogram carbohydrate after this workout. That will be enough, and that will be super easy. Again, you can just make an healthy sandwiches to get all of them. All just be a smoothie that will be also helpful to achieve this goal. It's so manageable, reachable. What I suggest, consuming this around after like 2 hours after finishing your exercise. That will be super helpful for you. And plus, don't forget to take some berries or some fruits to get some polyphenol as well.
And what do you think about protein post-exercise? How important is it to get the protein in there for your body?
That's quite important because, right now it's a challenging topic for us because some new studies saying that time is not important. You have to most focus on the protein amount during day. But my point is, I suggest getting enough protein after within the 2 hours after your exercise, no matter what. Like if it's the light exercise or something, because our body has this kind of system that protein turnovers continues all the time. So all the proteins, like protein synthesis and protein breakdowns, it's kind of loop. You are kind of pushing. It's like a vehicle, or just tracking all the time. You're working all the time. So when you do exercises, your body doing a lot of breakdown. So you have to put some protein to just improve protein synthesis as well, to just recover quickly, to boost muscle protein synthesis. So you don't want to lose any fat-free mass. So everyone aim to provide all the fat-free mass in their body. So that's my point. You have to make sure that you are getting enough protein. So I tend to give them at least 20, 25. Sometimes if they are vegan, 40 gram 40 gram protein after exercise, just to quickly recover.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I think the protein thing is really important. And as an athlete, I think you need a little bit more protein, don't you? Just to cope with all of that extra protein synthesis and so that you don't lose muscle mass, so that you can maintain that muscle mass and that muscle performance.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. So I think we've covered a lot now, Asli. That's quite a lot of information. We could just carry on, and there's loads and loads of things I want to ask you, but I think that's probably enough information for now. Is there anything else that you think that you could offer as a nugget before we finish? Anything else you want to say to our listeners that's another important message?
I believe the most important part is one size not fit all. Please, if you are talking about your gut microbiome, it's just unique for you. Because, for example, in gut microbiome studies, we say, as scientists, we say the very first 1,000 days is super important for your, in terms of your gut microbiome, because that's the time when your gut microbiome kind of shape, the first shape. And thinking of the very first 1,000 days, our family feed us either breastfeeds or formula. They're applying different type of meals and the different type of, we are eating the different type of meals because we have different cultural backgrounds and everything, or every economical stuff, So it depends. It changed everything in terms of your gut microbiome, and it's shaping. It has been shaping since then. So right now, as a grown up, we are applying different type of exercise duration, and we have the different type of stress loads, and we have different sleeping patterns as an adult. So one size not fit all. That's the biggest thing I would like to highlight, because even sometimes I all the time love saying to my athletes, fairy tale Cinderella, even the witch didn't do one shoe to fit everyone. It was fitting just Cinderella and Cinderella only. She tried to create the best one for her, but it doesn't mean that it will work for everyone. So you have to make sure that, as a sports dietitian, my job is to find the best, the most suitable nutrition solution for you, just around your training and also your off season, so that I can just help you. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it will work for everyone. So you have to decide how I can train my gut, how I can understand my gut needs. So mindful eating is super important. So I just try to educate my athletes, try to listen their body, and try to listen everything. I try to pick every single detail to understand them. So try yourself, listen yourself. So find the best solution works for you. That will be the most important thing. I
Perfect. So one size definitely doesn't fit all.
Yep.
And that's a really important message. Be holistic. Think about yourself, all these different aspects of your life that might be influencing your gut microbiome, and you need to concentrate on that holistic approach to heal it with nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, relationships,
Yes.
everything. And that's the Microbiome Medics message as well, because we're lifestyle medics, and that's the message we need to get across. So thank you so much, Aslı. I've learned loads. It's been really, really fascinating, and I could talk to you all day about this, but I'm not going to. That's too much for our listeners to take in. So thanks again, and
thank you so much.
Hopefully we'll chat again soon. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks so much for everything. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Microbiome Medics podcast. We really hope you enjoyed the content, and we welcome your feedback. We'd love to hear any suggestions you might have for microbiome topics that you'd like us to cover. And we also appreciate listeners' questions, and we'll endeavour to answer them in the next podcast.